This is a ManeHustle Media podcast.
Yo, this is Sharmane from the Single Simulcast. And when I'm not making you laugh or making up parody songs, I'm kicking back, listening to Militantly Mixed.
Hi, and welcome to Militantly Mixed, a podcast about race and identity from the mixed race perspective. I am your host, Sharmane, aka Mixed Girl Maine, and today I'm going to try not to go on too long for this intro because I do have quite a long interview coming ahead. In fact, I'm splitting this one into two parts, 2 episodes, because we just towards the end of our 1 hour that I normally do a recording with my guest, we were starting to get into some new heavy race stuff, and we wanted to keep going. But I know people's attention spans for a 2-hour podcast is probably not very strong, and most of you are probably listening to this on your commute, and hopefully you don't have 2-hour long commutes. So I'm going to go ahead and split this up because I do want you to get a full picture of the discussion that we had, because it was a pretty good one. She introduces me to aspects of mixed representation and mixed understanding in Canada that I hadn't heard before, so I am really happy to share that with y'all today. So I won't let it linger too much. There is a concept that she discussed. We talk a lot about otherness, which is a big part of this show, obviously. But she has different layers of otherness because not only is she Canadian and mixed race, but both of her parents are immigrants. She is of Haitian and French descent, and she also lived here in the States for a period of time, so she has an experience of being an immigrant in a country. We talk about being the only brown kid in a white school, or not the only brown kid, but the only foreigner maybe in a black school or Latin school. And then she introduces me to this concept that they have in Canada called the mixed solid, which is in opposition to the United States version of that, which is the melting pot, where we have the big lie that we all melt and get along and everybody, fa la la la, the races will eventually all get along because we're a big melting pot. Whereas in Canada, they have a mixed solid, which allows you to be who you are and be proud of your ethnic heritage, proud of your cultural upbringing, but you're still Canadian. And so they're not viewing you as an African American or Asian American like we do here. You're just a Canadian who happens to also be fill in the blank. And I've never heard this quite described the way she explained it before, so I really liked it, and I'm happy to introduce that to y'all as well. So yeah, let's keep this short. 2 minutes was pretty good. I won't go into my normal spiel about Patreon and all that kind of stuff. You already know we're a fan-sponsored show, and you know that you can go to Patreon or PayPal to sponsor us and follow us on our social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Militantly Mixed. And if you want to hit us up on email, you can go to Sharmane at militantlymixed.com, S as in Sam, H-A-R, M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, E, at militantlymixed.com. Let us know if you want to come on the show, and I will get back to you on that. Or you can drop us a voicemail, 323-545-6001. You can tell us how you're feeling about the show. You can give us topics or ideas. If you want to come on the show and you want to share a little bit of your story, you can do that as well. Or you can drop us a little radio interstitial like, hey, my name is, and I listen to Militantly Mixed. That's fun too. So yeah. I feel like I was talking like an auctioneer hella fast, but I don't want this to linger too long because I do have about an hour and 7-minute interview coming towards you, in addition to that other hour after that. So without further ado, let's get on to this next episode of Militantly Mixed with my guest, Mariline from Ottawa. All right, so let's get into it. Tell us about yourself and a little bit about your background, and then we'll start talking.
All right. Well, hi. I was born in Ottawa, Ontario, the capital city of Canada. My mother is from Haiti. She was born in Haiti, came to Canada a couple years before I was born. My father is from France, born and raised in Paris, but his mother was from Algeria, so he's half Algerian, half French, and my mother's Haitian, so I am, I guess, mixed black and white and sort of a little bit of, I guess, like Arab a little. So I was born in Ottawa, and it is a pretty multicultural city here. There's a lot of kinds of people here. It is a smaller city, though. It is a government city, so there's not there's about 1 million people here. But so I grew up growing up as a kid. I remember my mom saying, I probably asked her like why I look different. I distinctly remember her saying, well, I'm chocolate, that is milk, and you're milk chocolate. That's what you are. So, I was like, okay, I guess that's what I am. But and when I went to school, because both my parents are French speaking, I started going to school in French, like a French school. And I was, for a long time, I was probably one of the only kids of color in my school. And I distinctly remember maybe being in kindergarten or something and looking at myself and thinking, I wish I were, paler like the other kids. I wish I had like white skin like my dad, or, stuff like that. And so I remember being a little kid, maybe 4, 5, 6 years old, wanting to look like the other kids that I went to school with, and being, I don't know if it was ashamed, but just like not really liking the Haitian side of who I am, because, there weren't a lot of other kids who looked like me in my school. I don't know. I think it is probably different now, because I have noticed that the city is way more multicultural than it used to be. So like walking down the street, you see all kinds of people, especially like downtown. But but growing up, that's what it felt like. And even though I did wish that I looked like the other like white kids in my school, the Haitian side is the side that was most present in my life. My mom is Haitian. She came here from Haiti, and my grandma came here a few years after I was born. So there is a small Haitian community within Ottawa. There's a bigger one in Montreal as well. So there are a lot of Haitian people here. So we attended a lot of Haitian events. My mom signed me up for different things because I sing. So she would, make me perform at these Haitian events that, the community was throwing. I remember for a bit when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, I took part in like a radio show, like a community radio show that this like Haitian association, I suppose, put on every Sunday. So I'd go and, I'd read poems in Creole or, talk about certain things. I was a kid, so it was scripted. So I was made to do all this stuff. But so the Haitian side was always the most present, I guess, in my life.
So like at that young side, I think all of us deal with this when we're mixed, if we're in a space where everybody doesn't quite look like us, that we wish we looked like them for the most part. Did you feel the tension, or I guess those are your early stages of code switching, where you are Haitian at home and then you try to make yourself as white as possible when you were in school?
I think when I was in school, I tried to make myself as white as possible. But when I was at home, I still sort of, I was embarrassed of my accent whenever I tried to speak Creole. So, I was a little kid, so I perceived the laughing that adults around me would, they would laugh at like me attempting to speak Creole. And I think maybe they were just laughing because it's, it's kind of cute, a little kid. Yeah. But I perceived it as, I'm not doing it good enough. So I never really, to this day, I'm not really comfortable speaking it, because I'm just not used to it. But, that's a big thing. I can read it and I can say it, but in conversation, it takes me like a while to put my words together, and I don't like my accent. But, so I did feel always a little bit just on the outside, just a little bit. But, because my mom did put me in all these things, and I took part in a lot of like Haitian community events, and there were a lot of just Haitian people in my life, and Haitian food on my table. So it was really the side I really associated myself with culturally. As for my dad's side, the French side, I feel like when I was younger, I did really want to be French. I would make an effort to watch, like French TV shows, like from France, and make an effort to, listen to music from there, and, try to put myself within that culture, because I didn't really have any like French people around me. I mean, there are French Canadians here, but my dad, he's not French Canadian. So it's sort of different. It's not the same, but I wanted to be closer to my dad, and I wanted to feel like I was also a part of what he is, even though it was something that I felt was a bit distant, because I didn't really ever go to France until I was an adult. and my dad's family wasn't near us.
I'm actually kind of marveling, and I know you mentioned this when we talked the first time, but you said that you had basically been in French school for most of your young childhood, and then you do a flip into English, or was it Canadian public school? Is that what it was? So that you could be bilingual?
Well, what happened was my mom got a job in the States. She's a nurse, and I think they were recruiting a lot of nurses from Canada to come down into the U.S. I'm not sure why, but I do remember a lot of my friends, my mom's friends, were also nurses from Canada. So we came down to the States because she got a work visa, and we lived there for a couple of years. And that was really the first time that I went to school in English. And I was 12 years old. So this was grade 7 and grade 8, 7th grade, is when I started really going to school in English. And I do remember being really, it was very different for me, because really this was the first time that I went to a school where there were so many people of color. Like in my classroom that I first had, the first school I attended when I went there was a school, like a public school in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And in my classroom there, first of all, there were a lot of students in one classroom, which was we kind of
load up our classrooms.
So there were maybe like 30 kids, and out of all those kids, only one kid was white. The rest were Latino or Latinx and Black. So that was the first time I'd ever.
Connecticut? I didn't expect that.
Yeah. I didn't know what to expect. I'd never heard of Connecticut before. I just knew it was near New York. But yeah, it was very different. And it was the first time I had to attend school in English. Now, because I did, both my parents are Francophone. I went to school in French for that first part of my life. I did speak English. Ottawa is a bilingual city, but mostly English, I'd say. English is, very prevalent in North America, and French is sort of like just like a little minority here. But I had been exposed to English, but I didn't speak it fluently. Like I could understand what people were saying to me, and I didn't have an accent. I mean, I guess like not like a French accent, like I guess like a Canadian one.
The part that's surprising to me is that you don't seem to have any distinguishable French sounding accent, or even like the stereotypical Canadian accent that we hear down here. Like, when we put a Canadian in quotation fingers in our TV shows and stuff, like a Canadian accent that everybody pulls, and I don't detect that at all. Like I wouldn't be able to say for sure you weren't from the States or from Canada.
Yeah. I mean, when I see that stuff on TV, I laugh because I don't really know anyone who says, oot and a boot. But I guess that's the thing you guys believe.
We love it. Yeah, we love to think that that's what Canadians sound like.
I haven't encountered that here. So because I had been exposed to English like my whole life, it just wasn't something that, I spoke with at home with my family or at school or anything like that. So I didn't have an accent when I was in the States, but there were some things I didn't understand. So I'd ask with like a non-accented English, what does a binder mean? Because the teacher would be like, you need to get a binder. I'd say, well, what's a binder? I don't know what that is. Because, just like little terms for things like everyday vocabulary that I just, had never been exposed to. But so I remember the kids probably thinking I was really dumb because I didn't know certain words. And it was very, it was sort of a difficult time in my life, only because it was frustrating to know, like, I'm not stupid. I just don't know all the words in this language. Right. I don't, but anyways, it got better. And then my mom did switch schools. She put me in a Catholic school. Cause I mean, in here, I'd been in Catholic school all throughout my life. Because you don't have to pay for Catholic school here in Canada. It's like sort of public, but I think you have to be Christian or something to attend. Right. I'm not sure how it works, but it's not, it's not something you have to pay for. But in the States, after a few months at that first school, I had a really hard time. And also I do remember, because my name is like French sounding initially. But when I would introduce myself, with my name, people, the R in French is like sort of like in the back of the throat is where you make that sound, right? So people would like think I was Arabic, and I had this one kid who called me a terrorist, and then, I told on him, and I think he got in trouble for that. But, yeah.
Okay. Do you mind me asking what year approximately that was? Because depending on when it was in America, there's like, I could see why that would have come up.
Yeah. I was 12. So this was 2000 and, I don't math good. Sorry. 2004, 2000. Okay. before. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's for us, that's post 9/11, and that was the prime time where people were very making the mistakes of anti-terrorism equaling anti-Arabic and anti-Muslim, and so it was filtering down to the children as well, and that's why they were being crazy like that. That's pretty insane.
Yeah, but he was just joking, but I did, I did tell on him, but whatever. That was a long time ago, but so that was in the States, and then my English obviously got loads better from living there, and it was a different experience, especially the whole that first few months where I was in public school. I'd never been exposed to that many people of color in one classroom before. So yeah, like I said, only that one kid was white, everyone else was black. So for the first time, I didn't feel like I stood out in a classroom full of kids. I didn't feel like, I remember even like being a kid and walking into a classroom and then looking around like, oh, I'm the only like brown person here. Yeah. Or oh look, another one. Okay, so I'm not alone here, or just stuff like that. But this was the first time that wasn't, like I didn't feel like I was sticking out.
So like visually you didn't feel that you were sticking out, but did you feel that you were sticking out because of the cultural barrier, or for the most part were you able to kind of slide through, except for when you didn't know like an American English word?
Well, this was visually, I suppose. I feel like it didn't stick out visually, but I guess I was maybe a weird kid, or maybe, kids were kind of mean, especially around that age. I felt like anytime I did something, they would, because they already knew that, or they already thought I was dumb because my English wasn't very good at the time, because they already thought I was like dumb. They also would like point out anything that I did and like try to like make fun of me for it. And it was just like so frustrating. I remember this one time, this was maybe like a few weeks in, I'd already, it was already established. I didn't know what binder meant. I didn't know how to say printer. Like I was the dumb kid who didn't know these basic words. But I remember, putting like, what's that stuff called? Whiteout, like whiteout. Is that an American term? Yeah. Okay. Whiteout on my nails one day in class because I was bored. And then this kid just started making fun of me for it. Like, what is she doing? What is she putting on her nails?
Oh man, every girl did that once. Right? That's the age that you do stuff like that.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. And then this other kid was like, it's not that weird, dude. Leave her alone. So I was like, okay, so he's just picking on me because he feels like I'm an easy target at this point. Right. But it was just like any little thing that I would do would, get me like made fun of. But I remember this one like vindicating moment in grades at that time at that school, when there was the teacher separated us into different groups, and there was like a competition, like, she'd ask questions and the group to answer the fastest would get points, would win like a pizza party kind of thing. And I was the one answering all the questions. Not because I'm smarter than everybody else, but just because I guess the curriculum was kind of different maybe, or maybe, I don't know, resources to American public schools are just like not the best maybe. Right. I don't know, but there were like a lot of things
standard of education here compared to other places.
Yeah. So which is unfortunate, but just a lot of stuff that, we had been learning that semester. I was like, oh, I did this 2 years ago, or oh, I've done this before kind of thing. So I was answering all these questions. My group was so happy. They're like, oh, you are smart. I was like, yeah, I am smart. What do you mean? Of course I'm smart. So yeah, that one vindicating moment in grade 7.
Right.
But yeah, so that was really when English really, I really sort of became like an Anglophone. I'd say like now English is really the primary language I use. It's what I use at work. It's what, I use like on a day-to-day basis. I still speak French with my family, but my younger siblings, because they were younger than me when we went to America, their French is not really on like a fluent sort of, because they were younger than me. Like both my siblings learned how to read in English, so their French never sort of like developed past that, I guess, that 4 or 5 year old, 5 years that they had exposure, and then it was just like English for them after that, and they respond to my parents in English. But yeah, because I was a bit older, I was 12 when we came down, so but now English is the primary language I use. And when I came back to Canada after my mom's visa expired, we came back here, and my mom kept us in the English system because she just wanted us to be, fully bilingual. So I remember again coming back here. The classrooms here were, there was a bit more diversity than when I was a little kid, but it was still like I remember like being like, oh, the only like sort of brown person, or oh, I'm brown, here's another like Lebanese kid, and then that's pretty much it in the classroom. But I also did feel, because my dad, he is white, but he is French and not French Canadian, French from elsewhere, so from France. So I never felt like I could like connect with any of the like white Canadian people that I had around me. This was also the time where kids are really like into music and start to like, have like tastes where like they're like really into like, I don't know, they sort of like pretend to be really like purists about music and like, oh, I just listened to the Beatles, or no, I just listened to this. And, these would be bands I wasn't familiar with. They'd be like, how have you not heard of AC/DC? My dad plays it all the time. I'm like, well, my dad's not, Anglophone. He doesn't listen to that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I always felt like there was no one around me that I could feel like I belonged with. Because on either side, both of my parents' side, even though my dad is sort of like visually sort of like white passing, he's still an other. He is still different. When he walks around, people probably don't think anything, but when he opens his mouth, you can tell he is not from here. He doesn't speak with a Canadian accent or a French Canadian accent or anything like that. So, and he's, different culturally. But yeah.
What is that like in Canada? Because I know here, like I've worked from time to time with somebody that was French Canadian. Actually, two different positions. I've had a coworker that was French Canadian, and naturally, because Americans aren't really exposed to a lot of people from around. Well, they are, and yet they're completely ignorant of how people are from around the world. They can't see past a person who speaks French as not being French, and so this guy was always constantly having to say like, no, I don't know that. I'm not French. I'm French Canadian, and then try to tell the different, explain the difference. But was your dad treated a certain kind of odd way in Canada because he was French versus French Canadian?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say for sure he was. I remember he told me stories about when he first came here. So I guess it's not really a thing that people do. I don't eat mustard, but he said in France, when you order French fries, you get mustard with it on the side or mayonnaise or something. So he told me the story about the first time he came here. He got off the plane at Pearson Airport in Toronto. He ordered some fries somewhere and asked for mustard on the side, and the waitress was like, "That's really weird. Why would you eat it like that?" And I guess he remembers that story because because he was like, "Well, everyone does it where I'm from, or like right. it's not a weird thing where I'm from." But
so fresh off the plane, he's instantly othered. And that's kind of his first exposure. That's crazy.
Yeah. So and also, I mean, he doesn't really sound Canadian when he speaks, although his French accent has really like sort of, I'm not going to say disappeared, but it's not as present, I guess, because he's been here a really long time. So when he's in France, family tells him that he sounds Canadian now, but no Canadian is going to say he sounds Canadian here, But
we have that in my family too. My cousins from England who moved to Australia, Australians think they sound like Brits, and to me they just sound like Australians. So I can't distinguish the subtleties between that. That's funny.
Yeah. So that does happen. But so I remember him telling me this story, and also he, he's different. Culturally, because French Canadians and French people from France are really different. It's not the same at all. Even like the way they talk is different. The slang is different. I've met people from France, and I mean, my dad is from France, but I don't really talk to a lot of French people. When I'm exposed to French, it's French people who are from here, even though it's still kind of different to me because it's not what's been around like my family. But, I run into like French people from France, and, sometimes they say things and it's just like kind of weird. Like the slang they use is different. And it's not, it's just very different.
That makes sense.
So even though like I have met French people from France, they're still kind of foreign to me because my dad, I wasn't raised in France and my dad's been out of France for a really long time.
Right.
And then French Canadians are just, my dad's not French Canadian. I grew up surrounded by, like sort of like the French Canadian culture, but it's still foreign to me because it's not anything that my family was about. I'm just like, it's just like everything's different. Even things that are part of me are different.
Yeah. And that is kind of the thing that is about us, is how there's no space in which we're never not the different one.
Yeah.
Whether we are culturally immersed in one side more than the other or not, we still kind of stand out, even as we can kind of, code switch and adapt to different situations. So so obviously that's something we get into a lot on the show. In your case, because, you talked about being immersed in Haitian culture at home and in your experiences and what your mother exposed you to, and not as much in the French side or whatever. So you grow up feeling sort of othered in school, and then at home you're Haitian, but you're a little bit uncomfortable with Creole, which I think, like, I have that experience too with the Japanese. I'm really uncomfortable speaking Japanese in front of Japanese people. My Japanese is poor anyway. And then on top of it, I mimic my Japanese grandmother's accent. And I didn't realize until it was pointed out to me that the accent she uses is the accent of an older woman, like an old lady. So like if I do attempt it in front of somebody, they'll say, why do you speak like an old lady? Well, the only Japanese I'm exposed to is my old lady grandma. So that's why I sound like an old lady. So when this is kind of happening for you, your version of that too, being immersed in Haitian culture, but, quote unquote, not being Haitian enough and not being French enough, how did you feel? How did you start to get into the place where you could walk around as a mixed person and just be a mixed person? If you're even there yet.
If I'm even there. Well, as I grew older, for me, it was really in university that I really started to really embrace my Haitian side. I mean, I had never had an issue with my Haitian side, and I was always around it in activities that had to do with being Haitian and Haitian people and Haitian food and whatnot. But because so many of the kids around me, my peers, there weren't that many kids of color around me. It wasn't really something that I was proud of, I guess. And I'd make jokes, things that my mother would do that I thought were embarrassing, but it was just really sort of like her Haitianness coming out, and it would make me uncomfortable because none of the other kids had to deal with that kind of stuff. My mom was always really overprotective, but that comes with, her coming from a country where things are really different. And so whenever, my mom, when my mom would be around my friends and she had her accent, because she doesn't speak English very well, it's very accented, it would always embarrass me. And, I never told people that I wasn't Haitian, but it wasn't really something that I would embrace or anything like that. But it was really in university that I started to really like that part of myself, because for the first time, with the different groups on campus and whatnot, for the first time I was, with a bunch of people, and I wasn't the only brown person. I was actually the lightest person in the room sometimes, not the darkest person in the room anymore. So it felt nice not to be, the only person of color. Although I was the mixed one, the light skinned one, it was better than being the non-white one in a white room kind of thing.
I agree with that. There is something to that, because I officially, or percentage wise, I would be half white, but I don't know that side, either side of my white side of the family. So when I'm around white people, I always feel uncomfortable, even when they're nice white people. But when I'm with anybody brown, and it doesn't matter if they're black like I am, or Japanese, or whatever, Latin, Filipino, they could be any other brown, and I feel way more comfortable in that scenario, even if I'm still the other.
Yeah, exactly. I guess that's a pretty universal feeling for mixed people, just feeling more comfortable with, the brown side. Cause, I said this last time, but there's no such thing as a dark skinned white person, but there is such a thing as a light skinned black person, so, cause black people, thanks to, especially here in the Americas, thanks to colonialism and, slavery and all that stuff, there's all shades of black people. So, but yeah, that was the first time that I really felt good about my blackness. Not that I felt bad about it before, but I felt like I did try to do things to sort of fit in with white people. I remember making really awful jokes in high school when, I wasn't super young, I was 16, 17 years old, but I was making awful racist comments and jokes with friends because I thought it was funny. And I thought, I don't want to be that one brown person who gets offended at racist stuff. So let me just be the one who makes the racist jokes kind of thing. I don't know what I was thinking.
It's an armor. It's a defense mechanism. That comes up so often when I talk to people for the show, not to get all showy or whatever, but in all these conversations, at some point somebody says, if they were immersed around white people, it was I had to get there first. That way I could just survive, I could just be there without everybody always being oh, here's the brown one going to get upset again. I think we do it as armor. In my case, it's the reverse, because I was raised mostly around black people, and it's okay for us to make fun of white people. It never becomes a problem.
Yeah. So, I did do that. And like now thinking back, now that I'm, quote unquote woke about a lot of stuff, I'm just like, I cringe a lot at the stuff I used to say, the stuff I used to believe, but you live, you learn, you grow. So,
also you're a child trying to figure out your identity, or even if you're like a young adult, when you've lived in this situation of always being an other, always being different, even when you're around someone that's even remotely similar to you, like, if you were around Haitian people or if you were around French people or something like that, like you can't help that you're trained by this otherness and this constant, thing. So I know a lot of us, feel bad later on or, we look back and we're just like, oh, I can't believe I did that. But like, what in your life would have prevented you from being that, to doing it? We had no choice. We were always weird. And until we could really get to the place where we just embrace our weirdness, and just be like, nah, you guys are weird. I'm this, like, this is me, until we can get there, we're going to make those kinds of mistakes. We can't help it. We're human.
Yeah. So, So in university is when I really sort of really immersed myself in the, my Haitian side. And there were the black kids and not kids, we were like young adults, but the black people I surrounded myself with were like from all over. There were a lot of international students from Nigeria or Ghana and a lot of like Jamaican people. So a lot of my friends were from those places. And a lot of them were like kids of, people from those places. So they were like me, from Ottawa, brown, black, but had grown up around like white people their whole life. And for the first time, this was, just like a space where I wasn't, an other or where they weren't others. So it was nice, we'd laugh about stuff sometimes about like just like our experiences, like being at a friend's house in high school and they feed you chicken and it tastes like nothing. And it's like, oh, they don't flavor their chicken, but it's nice to, be around people who know how to cook food kind of thing.
I'm sorry. It is so funny how universal some of this stuff is. like wherever we go, and you don't want to necessarily come off like the show ends up bashing white people, but everybody says the same stuff. It's like white people don't season their food. There's no flavor in even like the culture. Yeah. So when we get to be around other brown people, we're just like just throw all the seasoning into not just our food, but like our life and our conversation and our music and our dance.
Yeah. And it's like so funny because when I was younger, I was scared of spice, like spicy things, like hot things. But, as I grew older, I guess I didn't care as much. But now I get so frustrated because whenever I'm out and I have food, like in food that's like, for like the general public, like in a restaurant or like in a fast food place. And I ask, can I get hot sauce? And it tastes like nothing. And I'm just like, ugh, why does everything have to cater to like the white palate? Like, it doesn't taste like anything. What do you mean this is the hot sauce, the hottest sauce that's available? But so that's also like...
Do you carry your own with you?
I don't. I haven't gotten to that point yet because I've slowly just started incorporating spice into my life. But no, I don't do that.
So I actually have a keychain that I've had for years that has my own hot sauce. So for a period of time, it was like, it's a sriracha keychain. But so for a period of time, it's sriracha. But now it's this habanero sauce that that a friend of mine brought me from Belize. so it's funny because I carried this thing around and I just thought this was just something that I did, and I don't know how I missed this in my culture, but it actually is fairly common for Black Americans to do. And I missed it. I didn't know. It was just something I naturally did. And then Beyonce put it in a song, and I was like, hey, I do that too. And then Hillary Clinton tried to connect to the Black voters by saying she carries hot sauce in her bag, and it blew up into a whole big thing. But I am always curious, like, because it was this weird thing that I naturally ended up doing, but also happened to be a part of the culture that I've missed. I wonder how many things like that all of us, mixed kids have. Like, what Haitian thing do you do that you don't even realize you do that is kind of a cultural thing?
I mean, I do a lot of, it's not like food related, but I do a lot of like kissing my teeth. I don't know if that's a thing that Black Americans do, but whenever like I'm annoyed or I'm pissed off or someone like, does something that bothers me, I just like kiss my teeth. And a lot of like African people do that too. And, that's always something that, I can, I remember like being like embarrassed sometimes when my mom would like kiss her teeth. And I was a little kid and we were places and she'd get annoyed at like some service person, not, giving her a discount on something or, just getting angry about something. And she'd kiss her teeth and I'd be like, oh, mom. But, now I just like kiss my teeth all the time. And I'm around people who kiss their teeth all the time at just like all this nonsense that goes on around us. And I also remember being so annoyed whenever we were places and my mom would ask, is there a discount? Can you give it to me at a better price? That would embarrass me so much. But now it's all I do. I always look for a deal. And I guess that's probably really universal in the whole like immigrant experience, come from a place where money is not doesn't grow on trees, and money, like my grandma was poor in Haiti, and now my mom, she makes good money, but she's like the first person in her family to make this much money, and she sends a lot of money back home to her family back home. So whenever she can get a deal, she'll try and get it. But so
I do think that is kind of a universal immigrant experience. It's kind of a win too, right? Because there's like a badge of honor where you can turn around and be like, I got this, which is normally this amount, but I actually got it for $25 less or whatever. You feel like good about it. And that is something I think that like the main culture in Canada and the US kind of don't have, and so it does stand out when we do stuff like that. It is weird, the things that we find that we're embarrassed as children that we end up embracing as adults. I don't know what that is. Like, is that just sort of programming? Like, we can't help but get that way eventually? Or if it is finally flipping that switch where we're just ready to embrace whatever it is about our culture. I wonder what that is.
I don't know what it is, but I think, everyone like gets embarrassed by their parents at one point while growing up. But I think it's really when you already feel like you're different, you don't want your parents to like add to that. It's like, can't you just be like all the other moms, or can't you be like the other dads? Because I also remember being embarrassed about my dad, because he is like white passing and like French, but the reason he even like met my mom is because he's really into Latin American music, Afro-Caribbean music, and music from Africa. He's just a big fan of that kind of music. I never grew up listening to any like AC/DC or I don't know, Led Zeppelin or any of that stuff, but I grew up listening to a lot of like Celia Cruz and all these like Spanish, like Cuban like bands and stuff. And that's how he was even like in a circle around full of Haitian folk, because he was just listening to that kind of music. So whenever I didn't like having friends over, because my dad would always be playing his music really loud, and I'd be like, ugh, why can't he just listen to the stuff that everyone else listens to, but
you're like, just be white, Dad.
Just be white.
That's funny.
Just act white.
So that is actually something that you mentioned before when we spoke about we talk about it a bunch on the show, like the audacity of whiteness, in which they can just ask us questions and feel completely entitled to ask those types of questions. And wasn't there something about people asking you if your dad had a black fetish?
Yeah, I've had, this was probably like in high school or something. Oh, does your dad have a fetish? Did he have jungle fever? Ha 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 ha. It's like, nah, that's not like an appropriate question to ask. Right. It's like, it's a weird thing to ask. And like, also like, I don't think my dad is a racist. Like, I don't think he fetishizes my mom or anything like that. From what he's told me, he's told me about his past, he's dated all kinds of people. And, it just happens that he really likes music, that comes from like black people. So he was, exposed to a lot of people thanks to his love of music. So that's how they met. But, people just ask you like weird questions or make weird comments. And this was especially when I was like in school here in Canada, where, although Ottawa is pretty diverse, the schools I went to, my mom sent me to Catholic school. The schools I went to, there were just a lot of white kids. And, they made comments like that, or even like with the first time I straightened my hair, I remember, and growing up, I just always wanted to straighten my hair. Like, I always wanted to have straight hair. I hated that my hair was curly, hated that, I always had to wear braids. And, oh my gosh, I remember this one time. Okay. It just came back to me, this moment. So I was maybe 9 years old, and we went outside for recess, and it started raining, and I was like, oh, it feels so good. I was making a joke. I was trying to make a joke with my friends, and I was like, oh, this feels so good. And I, was shaking like my braids in the rain. I haven't washed my hair all week. And my friend was like, ew, that's disgusting. What do you mean? You don't wash your hair every day? And at that point, it registered to me like, oh, these people wash their hair every day. Oh, okay. And that was something I was embarrassed about. So when I started doing my own hair, I just like started washing it all the time. And then, it was always dry. It's still recovering now. Like, my hair used to be so long and healthy, but, it was a dry mess for a bit because I wasn't taking care of it the way I was supposed to, because I thought I had to do like all these white kids, but, you live and you learn.
again, I mean, that's the otherness that happens is because we are taught that there's a white standard that, you know, we end up trying to alter ourselves to blend in as much as possible. And in doing that, sometimes we damage things like legitimately damage something like damaging your hair or because I did it too. But the opposite, I was getting perms all the time and I was, you know, trying to make my hair look more mixed than it came out. Like my brother has the curly hair and I have sort of half straight, half wavy, I guess, but it can fro in humidity. You know, so you end up doing this damage, like actual damage, or the emotional and damage that comes along with, like, because you didn't know this thing about the white standard, you've exposed something about yourself that ends up causing, you know, laughter for these kids because they don't know, and they're assholes because their parents are assholes and have never exposed them to anything, you know? Like,
So, but I remember that. And after like a few years later, when I started doing my own hair, anyways, I miss how long my hair used to be. Anyways, so in university, you know, this is when I really started hanging out with like Black people. And it was also the first time that I felt seen as like a woman, you know, like a sexual being, you know, like this was the first time like I got attention from men or like guys, you know, because in high school, none of these white boys were paying any mind to me. You know, like I wasn't like a thing. I was just like a thing. I was just like there. And everyone was like dating around me. I never dated in high school or anything like that. But for the first time in university, just hanging around Black people, you know, from Africa, from the Caribbean, or like, you know, second generation from all those places is when the first time I really felt like seen. Cause for the first time, I guess, when I reached like my early 20s or like 19, 20, 21 is when I really started feeling seen that way. But, so that's when I really started hanging out with Black people more, but also like the issue on the Black side, I guess, from the Haitian side, first of all, I always felt that I wasn't Haitian enough. I've gotten, cause I'm lighter skinned, obviously. So, but I mean, there are like Haitian people of all shades, but I guess I don't immediately register as Haitian because maybe my features are really different. But I've even had Haitian people like talk shit in front of me in Creole, thinking maybe I didn't understand or that I was from somewhere else. And it's like, but at the time when that happened, I couldn't say anything because I was at work and these were like customers talking about me in front of me. But stuff like that. Or like when like I said, as I got older, I got more woke. So whenever I would like talk to like a cousin about like something that really bothered me, you know, like some kind of injustice that was going on, I'd go into like my whole rant, you know, and as Black people, and she'd interrupt me and say, oh, so you think you're Black now? And it's like, what is that even necessary when I'm like, I don't know. It's
as
just
if
like
you wouldn't have a Black experience from white, you know, people.
Yeah.
Like white people are still going to treat you as Black, even if you're not as dark as other Black people. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, just stuff like that, or just little things, and also just in general, the whole like being Black thing, especially when it came to like dudes, who for the first time dudes ever paid any attention to me. But I always had like this feeling that it's just because I'm light skinned, they don't actually like me because they make comments that I thought were totally inappropriate, like, oh, I love that you wear like your hair natural because girls who wear weaves and wigs are fake, and that's what my mom always taught me, that girls who wear weaves are fake. And it's like, well, my mom wears weave. Like, what are you trying to say? That, you know, my grandma wears a wig, you know, like my aunt wears weave. Like, what are you trying to say? Like, yeah, it's just like not cool, or, you know,
and
I don't
also,
know.
Why is it even a thing? Like, this is something I don't understand. What is the obsession with why Black people would wear wigs or why Black people would wear weaves or something like that? It could just be you like the way you look that way. So who cares?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, who cares? Yeah. Cause I mean, I do wear like my natural hair most of the time. Only recently did I really start doing like different things with my hair. And even now sometimes, because last month I had faux locks in my hair because I really like the way they look. And I mean, I'm not gonna lock my own hair because you can't go back, I think. So I don't want to do that, but I wanted to rock the look for a few weeks. So that's what I did. And even then I felt like uncomfortable, and people would be like, oh, this is like, especially men, like, oh, I love your hair. How long did it take you to grow it? And I'd feel uncomfortable saying like, oh, well, you know, they're faux locks, but why am I feeling uncomfortable, you know? like, why do I feel like slightly ashamed about this?
Right.
It's probably because for so much of my life, people told me, you have such beautiful hair. I love that you don't have to do this to your hair. Da, 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 da. But, you know, even though like I'm against that, I still like feel it like when people ask me about my hair when it's not my hair.
Right. But also, like, how the fuck would you ask a question like, how long did it take you to grow your hair? Like, you can just hear these racist old stereotypes in the way people ask questions, and whether or not they know that they're asking a crazy question, like, I don't care about that anymore. I'm still mad. You know? Like, I don't want to give people the benefit of doubt about this stuff because, I guess my thing is, would you, if you're a white person asking a black person that question, would you ask a white person that question? Then don't ask that question. You know, like, that's the kind of stuff but I've never heard, that's a shock. I mean, maybe I've heard it before, but for some reason it really hit me in the gut to hear someone ask you that question. Like, how long did it take you to, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That made me mad.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe because I'm mixed, so people think like, oh, that it's her natural hair, because mixed girls wear their hair. They don't wear like fake hair like the darker skinned black people, you know? So I don't know, maybe that's where that comes from. But so this was recent. Someone asked me this, you know, so, but I still felt kind of weird about the question. So like, and you know, I like to think that like, I don't care about that kind of stuff anymore, but it's so like deep seated inside of you that like, even though like now I know better, it's still like, I still felt like a bit like embarrassed, I guess, to admit that, oh, this isn't my hair. But why do I feel this way? You know, it's stupid. But
also, I mean, traditionally, our people scattered from around the world and you know, black people, these are the hairstyles. So it is like, it is your hair. It can be your hair. It doesn't, you know, you don't have to feel that you have to present one way, you know, a particular way because you're mixed. But yeah, I mean, we're programmed because we hear it so many times, you know, we're disenfranchised across the globe. So we can't help that these types of things get in there and affect us. But and whatever efforts we can make to train ourselves to stop allowing those feelings to hit us, you know, I mean, I don't know what the solution is. I know for me, when I started to, you know, obviously identity was a big deal for me. It still is, you know, I'm doing a podcast about it because it's one of those things that shifts. Like sometimes I'm super comfortable being mixed. Sometimes I wish I was darker skinned and more obviously black because it would just make things a little bit easier for me given my culture and who I associate with and things like that, you know. You know, there's all this kind of stuff. But, you know, sometimes I'm really confident and sometimes I'm really not. And I think we all probably have that thing. But I have spoken to people on the show who still haven't gotten there. You know, they're still not comfortable in their mixed skin. And in those cases, you know, like, I don't know what the solution is to train us to feel better about ourselves. But, you know, it is very freeing when you can't just say like, yeah, this is my hair. You don't get to have, you know, you can have an opinion about it, but you don't get to put your opinion on me, you know, things like that. Like, like if we could just be comfortable in, you know, being just our mixed ass selves, like that would be, you know, this beautiful thing that we could have.
Yeah. So, and then like you said, you wished you were darker. When I was a little kid, I wished I were white, but when I was older, I really wished I was darker so that people would know that I was black. I was just really like over it being ambiguous looking. Right. And I just wanted it to be clear that I'm black. You know, I feel black. I'm around like my family, like when I'm around like family and stuff, for the most part, we're like all black, apart from like my dad and then my brother and my sister and I were like mixed. But otherwise, it's just like always like black people that I'm around. So I was just really wishing that I was dark skinned. And I sometimes still feel that way. And it's not so that people realize what I am, but it's because sometimes people assume things about me because I'm mixed. They'll say things like, I didn't expect you to be this nice. Or I thought, oh, I'm surprised you even texted me back. It's like, it's just like this whole thing about like mixed kids or like light skinned girls are just like really stuck up and think they're better than everyone else who's darker skinned. And it's like, that's not the case. That's not always true. Like, I don't know.
Right. No, like that's something we've only touched about a little bit here and there, but it is something that I think is pervasive in the stereotypes of mixed women in particular. I don't actually, this happened last night too. So my husband and I went to a comedy show that is called Chocolate Sundays here in Los Angeles. It's every Sunday, so it's a big show. And the host is this guy named Ron G. He's like slightly darker than light skinned, I guess is how I would say. And he had made a joke, which it was a hilarious joke, but then also in the aftermath of it being mixed, I'm thinking about, what his joke meant. But he says a thing about how he was introducing his fiance, who is black, to his friends. And he's like, he says a joke, something about, when you introduce your girl to your boys and all of a sudden your boy gets all kind of R&B sexy, he gets a little bit lighter skin. And so he throws this joke, this like list of things about like what would make his guy friend all of a sudden turn into this like light skinned hot R&B singer to try to coax your girl's attention away. And now he's got beef with his boy or whatever. And in the moment we are busting up, and I'm cracking up, and I even note, like he said, all of a sudden he's lighter skinned, and I like laugh and repeat it to my husband in the moment. And it is this funny thing. It's like culturally we've decided that mixed people or lighter skinned people are more attractive, and so pops up in this joke and the whole room is cracking up. But then in the car on the way home, my mixed self is going, why? Like, why are we saying that the light skinned or the mixed race people are our hot people? Because that sets us up. Like we get into a lot of trouble for it. I got it a ton because I wasn't traditionally light skinned, black appearing. I look more Latin or Asian, ambiguous Asian, depending on what, people's view of me is. And so in school, the lighter skinned girls did not like me. The dark skinned girls didn't mind me at all. And the dark skinned guys and light skinned guys didn't matter. But the light skinned girls were the only people that really ever was hard on me. And it was, and they would say, well, like you said, you think you're better than us. No, I don't think I'm better than you. I'm sitting there trying to be you, when you're a teenager, like you're sitting there trying to be what you idolize. And in my case, black people were the ones that I idolized. It was the people I was around and the thing I wasn't enough of. So I'm over here trying to be blacker and they're telling me I think I'm better than them because I'm lighter skinned and I got the good hair. Well, I don't have what we refer to as the good hair in our community. I have Asian hair. I don't have mixed black hair. So it was all this stuff, and you get beat down by it throughout your life. And so to a degree that I would almost try to make myself look uglier, I still kind of do it where I try not, I don't always try, for lack of a better word, because I don't want people to think that I think I look better or I am better than them because I'm mixed. And I hate that. And I hear it with every person that I talk to that has that, where colorism is prevalent in our cultures, that we feel like the light skin burden, I guess, of being better. And also we're supposed to be mean. Like, why?
And stuck up. And like, why is that a thing? And sometimes I even like make it a point now because I hear it like this whole colorist thing is so ingrained in people. And I notice it especially when like black people talk to me, especially like black women. They'll say things like, well, first of all, in Canada, maybe it's a bit different, but I always get asked what my background is. And, it's like a thing that people do, like
they do
all over the board, but not just like white people to people of color, but people of color to other people of color, because so I remember learning this in high school, and I do agree that it does feel like that. But we talk about a lot, or like the general like discourse, I guess, is that America is like a melting pot. There's just all different kinds of people. Yeah, but then Canada, the multiculturalism in Canada is a bit different. We're not a melting pot. We're a mixed salad. So there's different people and they all bring in different things, but no one is melting or losing their identity in the country, So there's a cucumber, a carrot, a tomato, and the lettuce. They're all different, but they're all a part of the whole, and they keep their personal aspects and characteristics, but they make up the whole. So people here, we're all Canadian, right? But there's Lebanese people, there's Somalis, there's a big Somali community in Ottawa, a big Lebanese community. There's people from Nigeria, from Ghana, from Jamaica, from Haiti. We all are from somewhere else. So I don't really, because I remember hearing you talk about this in one of your episodes where white people would ask you like, where are you from? And I do that, but it's not to other people. It's like, because everyone, is from somewhere, and we're all like interested in where we all come from. And it's black people ask me that, brown people ask me that, white people ask me that, it's just
all people ask still here in the States. But like, what you're saying, this mixed solid versus a melting pot, is something I've never heard before. And I would I would love this. Like, this would make a lot of sense to me. Because there's something about, like, here in the States, at least, or at least in my experience, when a white person asks me where I'm from, I'm being exoticized and fetishized and othered. When a person of color asks me, it always feels, whether or not it is, because sometimes it probably is the exoticizing and fetishizing. But when people of color ask me, it feels like they're trying to find out if we're family or not. You know, like, because black people tend to have a natural sense of feeling like family wherever we go. Or at least it seems like that in our culture. I don't know if that's more of an American thing or not, but, you know, so then it's like, you know, if it comes from a black person, it's also not like where you're from. It's like, you're black, right? You know, so it's like, it's telling me I already see you. I just need to know how much of you am I seeing, basically. So it doesn't feel, although it is slightly, you're aware of you being an other in the moment because you don't look enough like that they had to ask. It's the fact that they ask in a way that joins you to the community. Yeah. If it happens to me, if Asians do it, it actually feels very similar to when white people do it, to be honest, because Asians, and in particular, like in my case, Japanese don't like to mix. So when you try to walk around, like, I wear a lot of things that have like a Japanese flag or something on it, and they'll be like, well, you know, why? Basically, at that point, they think I'm like an otaku, which is a white person, generally a white person that is obsessed with Asian culture, Japanese culture. And I'm not that, because I am Japanese. But I just want to represent for the people or whatever, but I don't get permission to do that. So when Japanese people or other Asians, because it's kind of similar in that case, when they do it, it actually feels very othering, just like when white people do it. When Latinx people do it, though, it's the same kind of thing, because Afro-Latinas are all over the place, and I kind of look like an Afro-Latina a little bit. You know, then it's like, well, are you Dominican? Are you Puerto Rican? Are you, you know, like, they want to know where I'm from in terms of, like, are we the same or are we a different kind of Latinx? So I don't know if that's the same for you, but I like the idea of a mixed solid where we get to be who we are, but we also get to be American. We don't have that here. You have, like, the hyphenated American is not to celebrate your culture, but it's to categorize you so we know where you stand.
Yeah. I definitely feel like in America, it's like a know where you stand kind of thing. I remember when I lived in the States, this is when I was 12 and 13. I remember the first time I had to like fill out a document. So like, I don't know who this was. It was maybe like some kind of like program that came in to like talk to my class about something. I don't remember, but they all give us forms to fill out. And at the top, you know, I had to pick one, and it was African American, Caucasian American, Asian American, you know, Hispanic American. There was just like all these sections, and I didn't know which one to fill out, because first off, I'm not American, I'm Canadian. So I went to the lady. I was like, I don't know how to fill this out. I'm not American. I'm not an American citizen. I don't know how to fill this out. She said, well, where are you from? I said, well, I'm from Canada, but my mom is Haitian. My dad's French. She said, oh, Canada? Oh, just put Caucasian American. So I filled that in. I didn't know what Caucasian was at the time, right? Because my English wasn't super good. I didn't know what Caucasian meant, but I just put that. But Canada, I guess, immediately means Caucasian. And I was like, I guess I can put that, but I don't know what Caucasian is. And I'm not an American, so I don't. And it just felt like it was just having to fill it out to tell them what I was. But I was like, I'm not any, I don't know.
Right. Now they allow you to check more boxes, but it's still the same kind of thing. It's such a flawed section because it doesn't distinguish. Like, if you're African American, you can be Algerian, Moroccan, you can be, you know, from Ghana, you could be from the Ivory Coast, you could be from South Africa, like, you could be white, you could be Arab, you could be black, like, or I guess even East Asian, because there's a lot of Indian population and stuff like that too. So we don't seem to understand that, like, you know, like she said, she told you to choose Caucasian. That's because here they don't think that Canadians have people of color. Like, we don't think that. So if we see it, we're like, oh, weird. Immigrants go there too? You know, like, we have no clue.
Yeah, and that's so crazy. My first day of school in Connecticut, I was in line to walk into the classroom. This girl standing in front of me, this black girl, was like, where are you from? I said, I'm from Canada. She said, I didn't know they had black people up there. And I was like, Yeah. But yeah, so that was a weird thing. I'd never had to fill anything like out like that before. And to this day, I've never filled anything out like that here.
So they don't do that at all?
Not really. I mean, I remember, I know when I've applied to jobs and stuff like that, they'll ask if I am part of a visible minority or if I'm Native American, and I'll put visible minority, but I don't have to specify what that means.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that would be so much better.
Yeah.
I was like, that would be so much better.
And that's for job applications, I guess, because they want like a very like representative like pool of applicants or something. Right. So they'll say, well, if you're a visible minority, check here. If you have like a disability, check here, kind of thing, to prioritize certain people or give certain people a chance, I guess. But yeah, that was the first time I've had to fill something like that out. And I just remember at the time thinking like, this is such like an American thing. Because even at that age, I was 12 years old. I just remember like when I was in the States, that I just remember thinking like race matters so much here.
It does.
It matters so much. Like it was like in Canada, like I was aware that I was different and I wanted to look like the other kids, but it was never like in the States. I always felt like it was just like very like so much more present. Like race matters so much here that we had to like fill out this stuff for just like this company giving like some presentation about, I don't know, like not doing drugs in school or something. Like it was very weird.
Yeah, it's everywhere here. There's not like even when I filled out so here in the States, when we have grocery stores, you can get a membership card or like a discount card for that particular store. And usually you just need, legitimately you just need your phone number or your email address so you can get the coupons or whatever. But they do have you fill out even your age, race, and able-bodiedness demographic so that they can say like, 36% of black people use this card, 60% of white people. Like it does there's not a place, there's not a thing that we don't fill out that doesn't have this on there. Job applications, the little membership cards, every single thing we fill out has a category like this. And
that's crazy.
And it's just so inaccurate too, because even like this is something I talk about at home because my husband is half Arabic and half white, but he didn't know he was Arabic until he was an adult. He didn't know that his father was different than his dad, the man who raised him. And so now if he checks a box, he wants to be aware of the fact that he actually has another ethnicity. But here in the States, Middle Easterns are inside the category of Caucasian still. They're under the category of white. And here in the States, that has happened many times. So the Chinese and the Japanese that were here early on, like when the Chinese were here to do the railroads in the 1800s and the Japanese that came over in the early 1900s, they were still checking the white box until Japan became an enemy of the United States. And now Asian category exists, but it didn't exist before that. There was always black and white. Yeah. And now there's other things. Now there's Latin. So even now you have to distinguish here, if you're Hispanic, not like if you're white, but not of a Hispanic speaking country. And then Latin and then, whatever. But like, let's say you're Afro-Latina or let's say that you are mixed race. We didn't have anything we were allowed to check. Now there's a category that says 2 or more races or decline to state. But it's so problematic, because you can be from so many different places and not. Actually, there's a joke that I've heard on many TV shows, but in particular recently I was watching The American Office because I was just trying to see if I could like it. I was like way late in the game. Americans loved it, but I hated it. But there was a thing where the guy says, well, what do you call your African Americans in Canada? Like he asked the person, like, what do you call your African Americans here? It's like, and the person was like, we call them Canadians. I think it was The Office. It was something like that. But it was it was a thing of trying to explain like that's how important it is to America that we can't even go to another country and just be like, oh, there's Canadians here. It would be, oh, there's African Americans here except for they're Canadian. you know, like that's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I do remember watching that. I did like The Office. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I've never had to fill something out like that when I was a kid, like in school, where I had to fill stuff out, but I never had to fill something out where I had to specify where I'm from. And if it's happened, it's like very like rare. I think maybe like census stuff.
I was gonna say, like, do you do a census to distinguish what your country demographics are? Or does it even matter?
We do one, but like I don't think I've ever had to. I don't like because I've only been for an adult for like a little bit, you know. But so if they ever like called my household, I think it was probably like my parents who filled stuff out for us. I don't even remember doing that. Only ever like maybe a couple times, and then when I've applied for jobs and they ask if I'm a member of a visible minority, and that's it. Like never anywhere else. But that document when I filled out when I was in Connecticut, that was the first time that I had to do something like that, and it was very confusing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and I can imagine too, like in your case also, because it's not even just that you're a Canadian that's here in America and you're a kid, but also you also come from a background of being different in where you're from. So you have all this stuff stacked on top of you while you're trying to answer a question that you have no you're no preparation for. That's crazy.
And there was no option for other at the time, and it just like all of them said American at the end, and that was like my biggest thing. I was like, I'm not American. Like I don't have any like documentation that says I'm American. Like I'm just on a visa here. But I was just like, I don't know how to fill this out. And even like the whole like African American, like to me, I feel like for most people I look black, or at least like light skin black, like, you know, or like brown or something. So even African American didn't feel like something I should fill out, because I feel like African American is this whole like culture, and I'm not a part of it, you know.
That's another thing. The separation as you get further, like, you know, black people were spread across the globe for slavery, and have gone to populate places where now people like Haitians exist because of the transatlantic slave trade, but they've become their own people now. You know, there's been enough generations that now facial features are different. You know, body structure is different, things like that, because the population is just mixed in from the people that were there. And so it's hard to even trace, like if you have to trace from Africa through the islands and then up into Canada, you've got how many different levels of removal are you before you know, to claim Africa. Like I had that struggle myself, because when I was in high school, like when I got into ninth grade, so I was 14, that's when African American became a thing. That's when the term started to take hold. Before that, you were just black. And to this day, I will still say I'm black. I don't claim African American, because it makes me, I feel it's so inaccurate. You know, it's all based on an entire continent. You know, it's not acknowledging the diversity of the people that are actually on the continent, even amongst the black people that are on the continent. You know, there's nothing to distinguish a Kenyan from a Ghanaian, or, you know, whatever. And so it got to be really popular, and obviously it still is very popular, but I don't feel that it's a comfortable or accurate thing, and it doesn't account for the people that come from the Caribbean, or from that are Afro-Latino, that maybe, or Latino, that maybe identify more with the Africanness than the Latinness. You know, like it doesn't allow for a nuance in a person's identity at all. And, you know, and there's, honestly, when we say it, we mean descendant of slave. Like here in the States, that's what we mean, descendant of slave. But what if you're an African who moved here, you know, what if you're a Nigerian who moved here for college a couple years ago?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's a totally different thing. What they want to distinguish in terms of blackness, they are not getting when they make us check a box that says African American.
Yeah.
So it is pretty crazy. Gosh, I really like the way you guys do it. I like that concept of the mixed solid.
That was something I learned in, I think, like grade 10 social studies or something.
So they actually teach you as kids that is.
Yeah. And we talk about in America, it's the you know, the melting pot, you know, but we're a mixed salad, so, and everyone's allowed to be different here, kind of thing. There's always that kind of, you know, comparison a bit.
Really?
I feel that do a little, yeah, for sure.
That's how narcissistic America is we don't teach what things happened anywhere. Like we don't come out of school knowing about other countries, and the only reason why I felt like I did it all is because I had foreign grandmothers. So I had more of an awareness, or at least a desire to learn about, at the minimum, the places my grandmothers came from, because they actually were part of raising me. But beyond that, like actually trying to learn a little bit about other countries, that is not something that we're to. I do remember like being really shocked when I first moved to the States and telling people I'm from Ottawa, and
people did not know what I was talking about. And I mean, like, I didn't know what Connecticut was, but I knew what Washington, D.C. was.
Yeah.
I knew like major cities and stuff. And I was like, well, it's the capital of the country that is your biggest like trading partner, guys. Like, I don't, we're right next to you.
Meanwhile, the kids are like, what's trade? Like, they didn't know how to answer any of those questions.
But yeah, I do feel that here in Canada, we do a lot of like comparisons to like the US, like, oh yeah, we have issues here, but at least it's not like in America, meanwhile we have like our own issues. Like, oh, Donald Trump is like not cool, but at least, we don't have that here, but we just elected this like totally like problematic person as the premier of Ontario. But, it's super racist in the States, but, we had like residential schools until 1996. And those were like the schools that they had where they, ripped Native children away from their families and forced them into those schools and, erased their culture, and they got abused and all this stuff. But
wait, they were still doing that in 1996?
The last residential school closed in Canada in 1996.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we hear a little bit about the treatment of the Indigenous population and stuff like that in Canada, but only recently, and only because Trudeau got so popular down here. Like, everybody thinks he's so hot and stuff like that, and they, that's the only reason why Americans are turning an eye towards Canada at all. Wow, I'm surprised that was still happening. Well, I guess I'm not surprised. What am I talking about? I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And you know what I just learned? Like, this is crazy to me, but I think, is it the 13th Amendment that abolishes slavery? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the 13th Amendment wasn't like put in the books in Mississippi until 2013. So,
right.
Like, I guess people just like kind of ignore stuff until like in some places until like the last minute. Like, I don't know.
We definitely have some old laws that are still on the books or whatever, and people aren't paying attention. But to find out, when that news broke, to find out that technically it was still kind of legal in Mississippi. I mean, of all places in the States, it makes a lot of sense that would be one of the places that it would.
Right.
But it was just one of those things where you're just like, we're still alive, even though the last person who would have been a slave has since died, that were removed from that generation. To think that we were still kind of touching that generation, in a matter of speaking, through something like a law not being scrubbed from a book or whatever is pretty insane. That's it would. I don't understand why America doesn't teach more about at least Canada and Mexico, since they're the countries that border us. I don't understand why we don't know more about them. What I know really comes from the fact that I have family in Ontario, in Bobcaygeon and Toronto. Like, that's and that's like the extent of my knowledge, really. Besides, and it's really just because I had family there. That's it. And it's not like it's a lot of knowledge. It's just I now have an awareness. I at least know the provinces, and I know some of the major cities and things like that. But I don't have, in terms of like my education of the worlds. We don't do that well here. Anything that I know because I wanted to know. Yeah. Even recently, when I found out, we did the DNA, the African ancestry DNA test, which I'm going to but to be honest, that country wasn't even on my radar in terms of like knowledge of of African slave trade. It wasn't even on my radar. So it opened up, the results opened me up to now going, what else? Like, how did these people get involved? They were so far removed. Like, how did this happen? So now I have this, now I'm investigating because I'm excited of having this knowledge. But I would have gone my whole life never thinking about this country one time. Like, it would have never happened because we weren't exposed. Yeah, we're not exposed to other places here. But I guess we are getting close to our time. But this is the thing, is like we start to get excited. We can keep going. If you want to keep going, we can totally keep going. I've had a couple of these conversations that have lasted up to 3 hours. Like, it can just happen. So if you want to keep going and you have the time, we can keep going because I have the time.
For sure.
Okay. All right, let's keep going then. Militantly Mixed is a ManeHustle Media podcast, produced and hosted by me, Sharmane Johnson. Music is by David Bogan, The One. And if you like what you heard on Militantly Mixed, please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes and wherever you find your podcasts. ManeHustle Media. Turn your side hustle into your main hustle.